Well, we made it through one whole month of 2021. Frankly, part of me feels like we should be halfway through the year, not only a 12th of the way through. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow yesterday, predicting 6 more weeks of mittens and icicles. Frankly, with the storm we just received in New York, he may be onto something. Normally, most people feel reinvigorated by a new year. But many people I know are still trying to cope with the previous. Not even touching on the national and global scale of events, many people I know are doing all they can to hang on to any grip of motivation. Unfortunately, as something that Harrison, Mark, and I are discovering, motivation is fleeting. It's a good kick in the pants to get going, and a great source of inspiration. However, we need more than that to accomplish our goals. It truly comes from within ourselves, not any external force, which motivation often is. Harrison made a great point the other day about the difference between motivation and self-discipline. In Harrison's third installment of the That First Step blog, he says, motivation is what gets you started. It's that little exciting taste of a new thing that keeps you coming back because you want more. But it does wear out. No matter how much you want whatever it is at the end of your tunnel. Self-discipline is much harder. It has to be built. In some ways, it's the most important skill out there. Master self-discipline, and you can go after anything you want. And that is the core to a lot of what Harrison and I are about to talk about today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Walsh Wednesday, the Reflective Series. With me again is my co-host for That First Step, Harrison Mark. Today, we talk about what happened to us when the motivation wore out, and how we reacted and adapted to try to meet the needs of our goals. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Walsh Wednesday, and this is part 2 of That First Step with Harrison Mark. Unfortunately, we are doing this virtually, not in person. 2 reasons for that. One, I keep having possible COVID exposures. Thank God I've been negative so far. But also, we are in a horrible snowstorm at the moment. So, yeah, we can't quite get together during that, huh, Harrison?
It's pretty bad out there. And It's not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, I think, what is it supposed to be, like 8 to 12 inches today, and then into tomorrow get up to possibly like 18 inches or something?
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to breaking out that snow blower and those shovels.
Oh, gosh. I just bought a new snowblower for Christmas, and thank God that I did. The only problem with it is I wanted to buy an electric snowblower, but I didn't realize this one had to be plugged in the entire time. And it's,
really?
Oh, yeah. So, like,
Wow.
Fortunately, I have a good enough extension cord, but, like, when I go out there, I have to, like, be flipping the cord around not to get in the way of it and not to get caught within the snowblower.
Oh, yeah, that's super annoying.
But for the amount that I paid for it, it's doing its job.
I mean, I'll take any snowblower, better than nothing.
Oh my gosh, my back thanks me so much. Like I went out this morning and I snowblowed a little bit and it was like, oh, that was so much better than shoveling.
Oh yeah, it's so nice.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So January 2021, this is our second month of the That First Step Challenge. And
hard to believe it's only been 2 months, Connor. I feel like we've been at this forever. In a good way.
I feel like we've been at this much longer. And also, I feel like we've been in 2021 much longer. Part of me is like, it's still 2020. Until I get a sign that the effects of 2020 are over, I'm not giving up on that mindset. It's like, nah, it's the same year. But at the same time, this year, this month has just felt so long.
Oh my God, it's gone on forever, man. I feel like New Year's Eve was half a year ago, and it's only been a month.
I don't know what it is about it. Well, I do have some idea, and I know that we share a lot of things about that, and we can get into that in a second. But before we get into nitty-gritty of things, let's talk about just kind of generally how we've been doing this month since the last time that we talked about this on the podcast. Harrison, if you want to start.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you listening who may have missed the first episode or don't know what we're doing, basically me and Conor are both learning new skills. We're taking 6 months to get as far as we can in these skills. I decided to try and teach myself Spanish the best I can during lockdown. Well, whatever this is now and outside of the classroom. So I've been using Duolingo. I've been trying to do that every day. I have like a 51-day streak, I think. So I've been pretty consistent. But I know Connor's going to have a similar story. There have been days this month when I've started to fall off the bandwagon a little. A lot's come up personally that I had to attend to. I think that my Spanish learning definitely took a downturn this month. It's starting to come back up. I've started doing the flashcards again. I'm sort of forcing myself to get out there, and I'm starting to have fun with it again. But every now and then, even when you enjoy learning something, there's going to hit a point where you just hit a wall. And I hit that wall sooner than I thought. But just in terms of progress, I'm still going. I'm about where I thought I would be by now, I think. I'm not at the level where I could talk to someone in Spanish, but I can read basic stuff. If I go on like Spanish subreddits or something, I can get the gist of what people are talking about. I want to try and get books in Spanish to try and increase my reading comprehension, but the downside of learning by yourself is you don't get too many opportunities to speak it. I do have friends I know who speak Spanish, of course. I do have other methods to remedy that. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but in a week or two, I think that my main focus will be speaking as opposed to just learning.
There you go. That sounded pretty good. Well, I remember, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, we were just messaging each other only in Spanish, challenging yourself, seeing like what you can do.
Right.
Because what was it? I did Spanish all throughout most of high school, and then I took another class in college. I have enough in my head. Like I was keeping up with you for the most
You're
part.
pretty good.
But like also at the same time, you were also doing well as well, as long as you weren't using Google Translate or whatever. But
no, 90% of that was organic.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I think I definitely got a head start with this challenge. Can't speak right now because I did take Spanish in high school. And although I took some time off, I was learning German during that time. So I do have experience with learning language, and I think that's helping me. But the stuff I'm doing is pretty basic, and anybody could really do. Duolingo is a free app. A lot of it's just watching YouTube videos too. How often do you give yourself an excuse to just sit there and watch an hour of Netflix? You may have to think a little bit harder than you normally would, but learning a language is commitment. It's a fun process.
And when it comes to learning a language, as you said, so much of it is conversational, and being locked up inside has not helped one bit whatsoever to be able to try to communicate it with anybody. Sure, we have Zoom like we're doing right now, but like everybody's got their own agenda still. And how can you be like, call up a friend and be like, hey, speak Spanish to me?
I know.
Like, how practical is that?
Everybody's got a lot of stuff going on right now. I'm only able to see a very select few people. For me, at least, the whole reason I got into language learning in the first place was to get out there, discover cultures, meet people, the exact sort of stuff that is very hard to do from your own home. So that kind of like, I began realizing this month, that kind of inability to do that, to actually explore, kind of sucked my motivation out from right under me. And this, I'd like to get into a bit later, is why we should rely more on self-discipline than motivation, because motivation only lasts so long. You may be inspired to do something and have fun doing it, but once you hit that wall, or you take some sort of downturn, or your life gets busy, your motivation is going to dry up real quick, and you'll think, I might as well just sleep an extra 2 hours. Like, it's not that important. But if you got that self-discipline, it just pushes you along. And I think that brings me to, how's your progress going during this time?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and I appreciate you giving that general summary, Harrison. Yeah, it's I find a lot of similarities with how I've approached things. What was it? I think it was mid-January, I finally decided to step on a scale again to see how I was doing. I try not to step on a scale very often. I try to hide it, try to stay away from it because I know I can be very anal retentive about it. But I am back down into the 170s. When I checked myself, I was 178. So I'll take that because around Thanksgiving, I was like 189.
Hey, congrats.
So I'll take that. So I feel really good about that. But then also at the same time, you hear, the first month, the first 10 pounds are easy, but then keeping it off and then keep going with it can be difficult. And I've known that and I've kept that in mind. And I think I've been able to hold my ground, which I feel happy about. But But, there are some things that have fallen through the cracks. I wanted to get my sleep schedule in order, and the first thing I would do in the mornings was do the activities. I wanted to work out. For those who haven't heard yet, who haven't tuned in before, or you just forgotten, mine is on wellness, mindfulness, and physical wellness. One of the things is getting the proper sleep, and that makes such a difference. Getting proper sleep makes such a difference. And I've been getting like 8 or 9 hours as I should, but I'm not getting my internal clock is off. Like I'm staying up to like 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I'm waking up 10 o'clock, maybe even 11 o'clock in the morning. Sure, I'm still having 15-hour days, but I'm having it at such a weird time. And like 3 o'clock rolls around, I feel like I haven't done anything yet. I feel like I wasted a day, and then I do nothing for the rest of the day. And that's not a good feeling because technically with that clock, if I wake up at 11, I'm only up for 4 hours. If you look at that at a 9 to 5 job, let's say you get up, get ready, you go to your 9 to 5, you're probably only clocked in for about an hour. So that's like the mentality I got to keep telling myself is like, okay, my sleep schedule is off. I know that. Recognize where I am in regard to my schedule and take advantage of that, because make the most of the time that I am up. Though that's difficult with it being dark outside quicker. Yeah, I get that seasonal depression, man. I really do. I think this year more than ever, because of the pandemic and being isolated inside and having to quarantine like 4 times in the past 2 months, has definitely taken its toll on me. Fortunately, as I said, negative every time, but close calls, taking it seriously. Every time I feel like I want to lighten up about it, I think about my buddy Marv, and I'm like, no, I can't. So that's kind of where I'm at in regard to that. You asked me about running last episode. Yeah, running's just like gone totally out the window. I know
to run in a foot of snow.
I know. Well, I talked about the running in place there for a little bit, and I did that, and I don't know, I just fell out of it. And then I tried running outside again, and I was good for a little bit, but it didn't work. It didn't stay. I've been good about the other exercises. I've been really good about those. I've been good about the stretches. I've been good about the calisthenics. It's been tough. It's one thing I've been consistent with, doing the stretches and the calisthenics. However, I feel like so much other stuff has just hit me, and it's been harder to get through. And yeah, it's the self-discipline, man. Sure, I'm getting through with some things, but I'm not with other things. And that was one of the things we both wanted to tackle with that first step. Sure, we're working on specific goals, but we want to better our overall lives. We don't want to be just doing this and then falling through the cracks in everything else that we're doing.
I'd have to agree with everything you said applied to me. It's so hard to stay focused with everything going on. Even in the best of times when it's not a pandemic and we can go wherever, it's really hard to stay focused and keep that vision straight in front of you, especially if it's something that you're just doing to better yourself and you're not getting paid for. If someone was paying me however much money to learn Spanish, I'd probably be a lot more consistent. But because I'm only really doing this for myself, that's where it gets a lot harder. Of course, that's one reason why we're doing this, so we're sort of accountable to each other. But even then, it's so difficult to keep your motivation up when everything going on, you're stuck at home, you're just thinking, I could be sleeping right now, I could be doing whatever. It gets rough.
It does get rough. I want to take us back to the very beginning of January. We had New Year's on a weekend there. We both kind of took it easy that weekend. We were like, we'll celebrate this weekend. And then as soon as, Monday the 4th, Monday's my mom's birthday. So more like Tuesday for me. Like that's going to be my day to come right back at it. And that didn't happen. Like the beginning of the year starts and you get motivated and you feel like you want to do stuff. And I remember us talking to each other that Wednesday and we're texting each other. It's like, dude, I don't know what happened, but this year gave me none of that.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me at least, I was really happy with the progress I had made in December.
Yes.
I had gotten a lot further than I thought. I think that's because, like I said at the beginning, I was already kind of familiar with Spanish and I knew how to learn language through my experience with German. So I think because of that, I kind of slacked off a little in the beginning of the month around the time of the holidays. I was like you said, let's celebrate now. We've earned it. I'll get back to it in a few days. And because of that loss of momentum and that break, coupled with the other things we've already mentioned, I felt myself slowing down. Whereas once I would make sure I did Duolingo for 20 minutes a day, I would do flashcards for 10 to 20 minutes a day, and then watch like an hour of Spanish TV just for the listening component. Now I was only doing the bare minimum Duolingo to keep up my streak. I realized that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, the momentum was tough. And when it came to January, I think we both missed a week of writing our installments. I know I missed a week, and I think you might have missed a week
Yeah,
there.
I definitely missed at least a week. I think I missed 2.
Oh.
But I decided because of that, I might start doing mine bi-weekly until I have something to write about. Because I've realized that I'm kind of doing the same thing day after day. For language learning, it kind of comes slower and there's less of like a marker as opposed to watching your weight go down or something. I think that I'm going to do longer articles bi-weekly instead of shorter articles weekly.
Okay, that sounds cool. And for anybody listening out there, I think this is a prime example of taking what your original plan was and then adapting it to make it work out the best.
Yes.
So somebody out there might be thinking, it's like, oh, he's doing it bi-weekly. He's, taking more leeway. He's not putting in as much. No, that's not what it is. It's taking what you're doing, analyzing how it's working, and then revising it to make it work out for the best. So I think that's a really good way of going about things, Harrison.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would just add on to that point. Another thing was writing them weekly as opposed to having nothing to write about, because everything was pretty much the same day in and day out when it comes to, doing the lessons and watching the shows. It also allows me more time to make the articles better and more well thought out, which I think personally is way more important than just churning them out because I have a deadline.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I look forward to what you keep putting out there. I think for myself, I want to try to keep doing it the weekly. I'm trying to find that consistency. That's something I preach all the time, consistency, but I don't practice what I preach very well when it comes to that. The reason why I preach it so much is because I want to find consistency so much. And with that, I'm constantly fighting with myself to have that routine and to figure that out. What I like about doing the installments and what I like to do about writing it all down, it's kind of get some frustrations or insecurities from the week out. I feel like I really let loose on the last one that I put out. Not like I went crazy by any means, but I just kind of let a stream of consciousness just flow out, talking about the sleep schedule I was just mentioning and talking about my own self-discipline and things along those lines, and just kind of went on. And, it kind of validated myself. It kind of took myself out of my own head and helped me to keep moving forward with where I was going. Also, on that latest thing I was talking about, cool chemical compound supplements. You've known this for a while. I've been really into cooking. I've been really into diet. But one thing that I did recently, I picked up cayenne pepper supplements. It's really interesting. I learned about this over the summer with different spices. Various spices help boost your metabolism, help detoxify the body, and just good for burning fat. And I knew that peppers were one of them. And when I was at Rite Aid the other day, I was picking up a couple of vitamins and I saw the cayenne pepper there and it was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And I looked it up even further and cayenne pepper and other peppers, especially chili pepper too, has this thing called capsaicin, which gives peppers their heat. And you can read up. I go into more detail on it in the blog, but essentially it helps heat you up internally, helps burn fat, and helps boost the metabolism. And you take one of these things with every meal, and I think that's been helping. I haven't,
Wow.
as I said, I haven't gotten onto the scale since the first third or halfway through January, but I feel good. And I'm looking at myself and it's like, I think it's doing something. So
Is it
combined,
spicy?
no, that's the nice thing. It's in a little capsule, so you just take it down and you don't get any of that spice.
Awesome to hear.
However, yeah. What is it? SHU, I think, is the scale that it's rated on. It's high up there in heat, like how much like I'm taking per capsule. But that's why it's
Okay.
in the capsule, though, because you just take it, you don't feel any of the burn, it just goes down. Of course, side effects could be, rumbly tummy. You might have to use the restroom, or you might have one or two not so happy visitations to the throne room. But it's but fortunately, actually, I've had very, very little negative side effects from it. I think I had one night where I was just like, oh, this is awful. But that might not have even been the capsule. That could have just been what I ate. So.
And how long did you say you've been taking these?
Only like a week and a half now. So.
Okay.
So it's still
and you're
pretty
already
early.
Feeling better. That's not bad.
No, I think maybe it's just a placebo. I don't know, but at least I think, and that's the thing. That's the thing. You just kind of got to keep giving yourself the credit with all this. We had a conversation the other day where we were talking about we don't give ourselves a lot of credit for what we do at times.
Oh, no, not at all. And I think a lot of people don't either.
We are always going to be our harshest critics because we're the ones that are with ourselves the most amount of the time. So we see all the downtime that we have, even though that downtime can be very necessary to leading up to whatever the influential thing or the next step or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But we just see ourselves in those situations like you're watching YouTube for way too long, or you're like me and binging Clone Wars for much longer than you should, or it's things like that. You got to have the breaks during the day, otherwise you're going to go insane. But
yes,
if you take too long of a break, or you think you're taking too long of a break, you're going to drive yourself insane as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add a thought onto that. First of all, I think studying Star Wars lore and watching the Clone Wars is the most productive way you could spend your time. We definitely need more Star Wars scholars out there. But for everybody, you're in your head all day. You're the protagonist of your own story. You're thinking,
sometimes the antagonist.
Yeah, sometimes you're the antagonist as well. And you're thinking to yourself, I really should be doing something right now. And you're kind of getting on your own case. You're being way too hard on yourself. The point of that first step, of course, is to get people out there doing what they want to do. And, for me and Conor to do what we want to do, of course, and have accountability for that. But it's a very fine line. I think we mentioned this last time, between having enough self-discipline to keep going and punishing yourself, for having a bad day, because that can lead into a really bad cycle where you're like, I'm just not good at this. I'm not even going to continue. And then you give up on, your dreams because you convinced yourself that you couldn't do it.
I don't think I could have said that better myself. Like, definitely, Harrison, extremely. And I think that's the point that both you and I have kind of hit here in January.
Yeah.
I think we both expected this month to be different, especially, brand new year and this and that. But no, just no.
I expected this to happen, but I thought it would be, next month. I thought I'd have a little bit more time to prepare, but I got totally hit off guard by the whole thing. I was talking about how my self-discipline was going to be built up. And then here I am in that state of mind where I'm kicking myself for not doing anything. And just as a side note here, I think that's also what Conor and I want to convey here. And that's why some people might hide. Like, I could have come out from the beginning and say, my plan was to do bi-weekly articles from the start, instead of saying, oh yeah, this started because I missed a couple weeks. But I think it's important that we're totally upfront with you guys. and just say, yeah, we're having our own issues. Everybody will have issues on journeys such as these, and we're going to power through it. So I think it's important to show that instead of just pretending that we have all the answers.
And being totally upfront to ourselves, being upfront to
Yes.
you and I, and being upfront to ourselves individually, and just saying to ourselves, like, okay, this ain't working. All right, let's try this, me. Okay, me. Sounds great, me. Here we are. We're giving us, again, we're still giving ourselves a hard time, and we've had our rough days of the isolation, the cold, the darkness, all that stuff. It's definitely weighed. And, seasonal depression is a very real thing for sure. But one thing that we talked about in that text conversation the other day, we wrote down each other's accomplishments recently. Like, you listed off a bunch of great things that I was doing, and I listed off a bunch of great things that you were doing. And then, I don't know about you, after that conversation, it's like, yeah, I guess I did do that, didn't I?
No, I felt pretty good. Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where, again, we weren't giving ourselves enough credit. Sometimes you just kind of have to sit down and evaluate how far you've come, and you got to just like write it down or something and visualize it and be like, hey, I didn't suck as much as I thought.
Yeah, like with the mundane day-to-day life we all have, especially during the pandemic, it's really easy to forget about all your accomplishments. Maybe you graduated school in 2020. Maybe you passed that class that you didn't think you were going to pass. Those things are accomplishment. And I think it's important that if you're feeling down on yourself, if you feel like you haven't really done much of anything, talk to a friend like I did with Conor and, talk about the past year. I think you could surprise yourself. You were probably way more productive than you thought.
Yeah, and things move slower than we think at times. We're in a very fast-paced reality with the society that we've been in, and the way that culture has risen, especially here in the United States, is that to have the immediate gratification and that everything is so go, go, go. But now Here we are with the pandemic. Everything's kind of slowed down a little bit. But then it also kind of puts things into perspective to show that some things don't happen overnight. And especially the things that we probably really want most. These things don't happen overnight. And then you're going to get into that self-punishment mode. And then you're never going to keep going with anything. I think there's another thing that I really wanted to point out is comfort level. How we can easily get comfortable to a situation we don't like, but we don't do anything about it because it's what we're used to.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of situations where, you're involved in something and you don't like where it's going. Like me, I didn't like that I was almost 190 pounds. I didn't like that. Now, some people out there listening is like 190, that's nothing. But like for my height, for my overall disposition and all that, 190 is definitely more than I should be. I know how I can feel. I know I wasn't feeling well. But I could have easily just been like, yeah, I could work out, but I need to put this time to other things. Like I could be doing it more for clients or for music or something like this. But if I don't have the proper health and wellness, then I'm not going to be able to put as much of myself into those projects. Sometimes it can feel harder, but it's going to make it so much more worth it in the long run. Or let's say like you're in a bad job, like you don't like the job that you're in at the moment. And that's a classic one. You don't like the job that you're in, but you're used to it. It's a routine. Why change it? But if it's not working out for you, you got to take those steps to go ahead and try to do it. It's tough. It's going to be tough. But in the outcome, if it's going to be better, it's worth it. But it's a matter of that discipline to get you through it.
I think that is an amazing point that you just brought up. And that's kind of at the essence of this whole thing. Because, as human beings, we love being comfortable. I don't want to speak too much about biology because I know pretty much nothing about it. But, we're hardwired to want to be comfortable. Yes. That's why, the bystander effect is a thing because we don't want to get involved. We just want to keep going down our everyday lives, thinking about, what's the best way for us to stay inside that bubble. And a lot of I think a lot of people are dreamers. Like, we all want to break out of that bubble. We all think, how nice would it be if I quit my job right now and started writing a book? Or how nice would it be if I could go on a run, lose that weight, whatever it is. But when it comes down to it, we love that comfort so much, we're going to make up excuses, like you were saying. The most important thing is just to figure out, do you actually want to do this? And then just go do it. No excuses. Just do it.
If you really absolutely wanted something, you would do it. Now, of course, there are legitimate roadblocks that get into the way, but recognize what's an actual roadblock, what's an actual hardship, and then what is an excuse that you were making.
Oh, yeah.
There's totally a difference.
Definitely don't just quit your job on a whim. You're absolutely right about that.
Plan it out.
Plan it out. Like, slowly figure out what you're going to do, where you want to go. Don't put yourself in risky territory just because, that's the best way to break out of your comfort zone. Just be smart about it. Figure out what you want to do and, plan it. Just don't get swept along with the flow, I guess we're trying to say.
Now, like, we keep talking about accountability and how we're trying to find that self-discipline and we're trying to find that accountability. I feel in the point that you were making, just trying to get out and try to take advantage of whatever you want to do. So many people aren't as accountable. So many people are the dreamers, as you said, but so many people are not the doers. There's so many people that won't take action. And you see that so much, like social media culture. Everybody will talk such a big talk. But then when it comes down to actually making a difference out of something, the number of people is so much lower. And to be honest, some of the people that were not talking, they're off busy doing it. Yeah. And then people are like, how come you're not talking about this? How come you're not saying anything about this? Yeah, that's because I'm off doing it. And it makes a difference. There are people that are behind the scenes in the background, making a difference on themselves, what they want, something with their community, with the world. And just because you're not being vocal about it doesn't mean that stuff's not happening.
In the words of Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones, any man who must say, I am the king is no true king. Similarly, if you're bragging about how much fun you're having and all that stuff, maybe you're doing great, but there's that other guy who's just living his life in the moment and doing what he wants to do. Yeah. I just had to shoehorn Game of Thrones in there, of course.
Oh, I know you did. It's okay.
It can be easy to get lost in what other people are saying. Like, I'll never be as successful as this person on Instagram. Realize that limitations are often just in your mind, except, like we were saying earlier, don't just up and quit your job.
Yeah, no, plan it out and be a doer, but be smart about it. And I think that's a big thing to take from it. What you're saying about seeing somebody on Instagram, and we touched on this a little bit last time, I want to kind of add upon that. There are certain things I'm seeing. A lot of my friends from St. Rose, there's a lot of people who are releasing some phenomenal music right now. And I'm so proud of them. And I'm so excited for all the projects that they've got going. And I've been listening to this stuff. It's like, wow, this is good. Or I've been reading what they've been posting leading up to something. It's like, this is great. This is great. Obviously, every once in a while, the Green Eye Monster is like, oh, damn, what am I doing? But I think something to take out of this, and I've encouraged people for a long time, synthesize all the good things that you see around you. If you see somebody who's like, hey, that was a really cool marketing technique, try it out yourself. Yeah. Hey, that's a really good productional idea. Try that out yourself. Hey, that's a really cool place that person just gigged. Try it out yourself. Hit up that venue. Yeah. It's like, obviously, you want to be original. Everybody wants to be original. You don't want to copy. You don't want to be a carbon copy of anyone or anything by any means. But be a synthesis of all the good and positive things, of all that works around you. Try it out because you already have who you are, your model, your thing. But if you need that extra push to get out there, and if you see somebody doing it successfully, try to see what they're doing, see if you can replicate it. Hell, have a conversation with that person. It's like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I'm super inspired and impressed by you. Can I pick your brain a little bit about it?
Yeah.
And most of the time they'll so be interested because that comes back to them and they're like, wow, I was able to inspire that person. That's so sweet. Sure, I'd be willing to talk about this. And it's amazing how far you can go that way.
No, it's really easy to be jealous of people, but you got to remember, just like, the only person you're competing with is yourself. Let
Yes.
people have whatever they got going on, as much success or whatever, and like you said, be influenced by people, collaborate with people. I know in my creative projects, I love collaborating with people, like bouncing ideas back and forth, I think leads to the best possible thing. But in that same sense, the only person you're competing with is yourself. The limitations are in your mind. Push past them,
Definitely.
I think that's my advice.
Amen to that. That kind of goes along in the lines of one of my inspirational Snapchats I just put out the other day. There's a lot of people who fear not being ready for something. And it's like, oh, I would love to do this, but I'm not ready for it. I'm not in the right position for it. I'm not this, not that. Fine. But there's that, what is it? That quote by Richard Branson or whatever that goes like, if somebody hands you an amazing opportunity and you're not sure you know how to do it, take it and then learn how to do it later. And it's not like being underqualified and all that. And it's not about, thinking you have all the pieces in place. It's about being willing, being able, and take up the challenge to adapt as so. Being ready is not mean like all the puzzle pieces have been put into place, but it's more that you're able to solve the puzzle rather than this puzzle actually being fully solved.
I think that is exactly right. Beautiful way to put it.
And I hope that we definitely keep up the communication that we've been having, because I think like looking at this past month, we started doing better when we were more open with ourselves about it and discussing the issues that we've been having about it, because there was like a week period that we didn't really say anything to each other. And during that week period, we both kind of realized we were struggling. And I think having that open communication, I'm not saying it's like you got to have that only one person is like, no, just be able to like talk to somebody.
Oh yeah.
It makes all the difference.
It's super important not to be bottled up inside your own head.
Yeah. And don't think you're a bother to other people either, because all of us right now obviously need somebody to talk to. I think it's good to be like, hey, are you in the mind frame to have a serious talk right now? I think that's a fair question to ask somebody, and if they're not, then you come back to it. But if they are, that's to have that communication, to be open, to be honest, to be vulnerable, and things along those lines. The pandemic is still very real. Isolation is still very real. Winter adds to it. You just gotta, you just gotta be open to it. And you'll find the more open you are, the more things that will be able to come into your life, into your heart, and into your progress.
Yep, there you go.
So who knows? Like, I think we have a good idea of where and how we want to take February, but we'll see how it goes. And we will definitely be keeping up with all of you guys. Hopefully we can have a few more posts online for you guys. Hopefully engage with you. Hopefully we can have a couple more discussions. And again, this is supposed to be a dialogue, not just a dialogue between Harrison and I, but a dialogue with you guys. And we want to hear what you guys might be doing to try to better yourselves, or if you have any suggestions to what we're doing too.
Oh yeah. Let us hear any thoughts you have on this. That's sort of one of the whole points behind this, is we want to help as many people as possible break outside that bubble. Anything you've wanted to do, any skill you wanted to learn, come on this journey with us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, Harrison and I are social people. We kind of need and thrive off of being able to communicate and all that. It's very important to us. Most of the people who are listening, you guys are our friends. very few people have joined on who, don't know us at all. But to those who have, thank you so much for listening. I have noticed you. But otherwise, majority of you guys we know and we have some kind of relationship and dynamic with. And whether we haven't talked in months, weeks, whatever, or you just you feel stupid saying something, just send us a message. And I think that goes with just about anybody, It's like if you had a connection with somebody at some point, reach out, see if that connection still holds. And more than likely, believe it or not, it does. So go for it.
On that note, I think I have to go shovel some snow. I feel like that's a good place to leave off.
All right. I think we're good. So thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Walsh Wednesday, the Reflective Series. This has been That First Step Part 2 with Harrison Mark. Harrison, again, thank you for coming on. I wish we could have done this in person, but at least we got the technology to make this happen.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Connor.
Yeah, not a problem. All right, thanks, guys, and I'm glad we got to spend some time.